Welcome back to Movie Howl, everyone. My name is Joe. I'm here with my co-host, once again, Ryan. We're here to review another movie for you all. This was a movie that I recommended. I'd seen the preview for it some years ago. I believe it came out in 2018. And then I just happened to see it pop up on Hulu. So if you have Hulu, go watch this movie. It is called Upgrade. And if anybody from Hulu is listening, we will totally take a Hulu sponsorship. We're down with that. So you go ahead and ring us up. We'll figure something out. But otherwise, I really enjoyed this movie. I look forward to talking about it. For first impressions, we're going to go to Ryan. What did you think, sir?
Yeah, to start off, I think since this movie is so unique, I think we're going to just go with a quick impressions, mini review. So if you want to go watch it, you can go watch it. If you've already seen it and you want to get somebody else's impression, listen to the full discussion. So to start that, I didn't know what to expect. It's you, and the movies you suggest tend to be pretty bizarre and kind of all over the place. I mean, I really didn't know what to expect with this one, and I really didn't expect what I got. I mean, you've hit me with Snatch, the South Park movie, Mosquito Coast. I guess this is more, it's got the same kind of what the fuck factor that High Rise did, but it's
in its own way.
Yeah, it's a super, super unique movie. Like, I gotta say, I really did enjoy it a lot. It was very well done. It was well acted, I think, for the most part. It's not a spoiler to say that the main character has cybernetic upgrades, let's say. He has basically a prosthesis that helps him to move, otherwise he'd be a quadriplegic. And even the way that actor moves, where it's just, slightly wrong to how a normal human operating under their own power would be.
It is. I noticed that myself. I thought that was a very good addition that I assume the director had him do. There were certain camera shots where it felt like the camera was centered on him as everything else moved around it.
Yeah, it seemed to track on his neck where the prosthetic was too.
Yeah, I found out through some trivia that in order to make that happen, they hid a phone somewhere on his body. I assume probably taping it to right on the upper, in between his shoulder blades, a little higher under his neck, to get that. But they taped a phone there and had it synced to the camera to help get that to follow. And I thought that was pretty interesting.
That is really cool, because there are editing tricks you can do to make it track a certain spot, but they don't work as well as what I saw. And this movie only had a $5 million budget. Which sounds like a lot, but most movies have, I think I was looking it up earlier, it's like between 50 and 70 million.
Yeah, and then you've got some of the other ones that have the super ridiculous budgets, the Marvel movies, the Avatars, and they're going to have just utterly ridiculous budgets.
Yeah, budgets that are 10, 20, 100 times. I mean, they're not...
Oh, my God.
They're not 100 times the movie this is. I mean, they make good use of every dollar they have, I think. So the basic synopsis of it is it follows a husband and wife. The husband is old school. The wife is very modern. They are living in sort of a Black Mirror style future. And they have a house that kind of reminds me of my house a little bit. There's a lot of technology. There's a lot of automation. The husband's very resistant to it. Clearly, the first scene, he's working on a Trans Am and getting that ready to deliver to a customer. And it does a good job of establishing who they are. But the basic setup of it is they have an accident, a car accident, and the wife is killed, and the husband is permanently disabled.
Paralyzed.
Yeah, paralyzed. And it's his sort of quest to deal with that and figure out who did this to them and why. So, what are your thoughts? I'm struggling to come up with more to say about it without getting into specifics.
Yeah, this was, I just thought it was going to be a fun, unique action movie. Unlike other ones that I had seen, I thought the premise was really neat. This is in its core, it's a revenge movie. Where the things that happen, there is a particular, you got the protagonist and an antagonist. So you have this dynamic, but it's introduced really interestingly in the movie, how things are unveiled, how you find things out. It's really well done. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it. The actor who plays the main character, Gray, let's see, his name is Logan Marshall Green, and I don't know if I'd seen him in anything else before, but he could be considered a budget Tom Hardy.
Yeah, I really got Tom Hardy vibes off him. I actually saw that one of the characters was named Benedict Hardy, but it's the guy who plays Fisk, one of the characters who you meet later on in the movie. But when I looked through the cast, I really didn't see any names that I recognized right off the bat, and I didn't dig too deeply into any of them.
Yeah, there was not any big, super A-list Hollywood names in this movie, and that didn't take anything away from it. I liked all the performances. I thought most of them portrayed the character that they were trying to very well. Enjoyed a lot about this movie. Enjoyed the action scenes and the way they played out. Enjoyed little by little coming to understand what was going on in this movie as they trickled in little details throughout this character's journey for answers and vengeance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's a little bit I don't know, I'm so blown away by Logan Marshall Green's performance in this. Again, like the physical nature of it, the emotion that he conveys. I mean, just I guess what it is I'm a bit stunned by the way he used his body. Being a paraplegic in one scene, going from like basically 3 different modes. Normal dude, paralyzed, and then, learning to use his body again through this prosthetic. Each way of him being is so different. Along with the stuff that he was doing, the way he was emoting, the things that he was saying. And a lot of the time, without spoiling anything, a lot of the time he's interacting with a very limited number of people, or sometimes nobody externally at all.
Yeah, it's really interesting how they make that compelling. There's a lot of things that go on in this movie that lead you to really understand and empathize with what has gone on with these characters. You can kind of think one thing is going to happen, like, oh, this is obviously going to be, who the bad guy is, or oh, there's obviously somebody that is had done something wrong, so they're who we're going to look at, and then it subverts your expectations, and does some things that really surprised me. So I look forward to going more in depth with the rest of our discussion as far as what we thought of this movie. But as the first basic thoughts for it, fun action movie, good thriller, intrigue, a lot of things that go on that it wasn't just cookie cutter out of other action movies, like, this is going to happen, and now that they have this, they have to go here and do this. Things that went on that were almost kept you guessing. So definitely recommend. If you don't want to get into any spoiler stuff, now might be the time to go check it out, because we are definitely going to dive deep into this movie and talk about the things we enjoyed or didn't like, things that we thought were not as good as they could have been, because this movie's not perfect by any means, but I think we both really enjoyed it.
One more thing, not for kids. There's a scene very early on. It's the most violent scene in the movie, probably. And again, my girlfriend watched this one with me, and it got to a particular scene. I'm betting you can guess which one it is.
Oh, I know exactly what it is.
She was like, we were kind of laughing a little bit before because of the way some of the stuff was playing out, and then she just tensed up, and I was like, you can leave if you want to. And she's like, yeah, I'm out of here. This is too much.
Like with High Rise. Oh, they're eating a dog. All right, I'm done. That's it. I'm out.
All right. So from here, we'll get into detail into spoilers.
Yeah, this is spoiler territory, so if you haven't seen the movie and you want to, I would recommend watching it, enjoy it. I hope you all do. But to get into this, one of the first things you mentioned about him being more old school, his wife being very into technology, and the opening scene where he's working on this old car. I really enjoyed that because there's a moment that it felt real. As somebody I know yourself who's worked on cars, I've done it in a very limited capacity, but I have done handyman things around the house. And as he's working on this car, he does something, he slips with the tool and he jacks his finger up and he pulls it, looks at it. There's a little gash. He sucks, the blood out. And it felt real to me because anybody who's worked on a car, that happens. That's just, you're going to do that. You're going to have banged up hands. You're going to, jack your fingers and things up when you're doing that anyway. So I thought that was a good way to start and to introduce this character.
This really did remind me of an episode of Black Mirror to start with, because we're seeing the cars that drive themselves. People don't really do much. There's a lot in Black Mirror that's actually really similar to the house. Just the way the house does everything for you when you come in, it says certain things. It reminded me a little bit of my house. There were some moments in this where I was like, maybe I have too much of this stuff, because I have a lot. I have a lot of home automation, but I don't want it thinking for itself.
No, is that not okay?
No, it's not exactly what I want. And that's, one of the things that quickly happens in this movie is that, things with technology start to go wrong. You can tell. I mean, they don't make any attempt to hide it, that this is an old school analog people versus new school kind of, they refer to it, I think, on IMDb as like a cyberpunk thriller. Like, it's very futuristic. It's, high tech versus old school.
It is. It doesn't have a specific date when the movie is set, but based on things that happen in the movie, obviously we know it's a revenge flick. It's a revenge flick because his wife gets murdered. And one of the things that you get to find out based on information he looks through later on in the movie is her age and when she was born. And I believe this movie supposedly takes place in like 2040s. Like, I think it said 2042 when I looked it up.
Okay.
So it's just a little bit in our future. It's not like 21, 22 something. It's just, so many years into the future that we'll get to that. I hope I get to that point.
Yeah, well, it depends how you treat your girlfriend, I guess, right?
Ooh, fair. That's fair. Fair point.
Well, I mean, that does actually explain some stuff, because I saw in some of the highway scenes, there's a car that looks like it's straight out of Westworld Season 2. And then I swear I saw like a 2006 Mazda 3. It's like, these don't really go together. But the mix of cars that they show are so all over the place.
Yeah, he's working on this old school car, but she pulls up to the house. She's not even driving her car. It's this very futuristic looking thing, like maybe out of like a Minority Report or something, that was very unique. And it immediately lets you know before you're even inside their house that this is not present day.
Yeah, but they also don't go overboard or anything with it. They don't try to shove it down your throat that this is the future, which I really appreciate. I like that they don't get too into how the technology works. It's just there. It makes it work with the story without being dated or seeming too impossible or farcical or whatever.
Yeah, it was nice to not have it, jammed down your throat. That it was just part of the movie. I thought it was a good representation because one of the first thing that happens that causes all this to go into motion is they're driving back from meeting this particular software/hardware developer, this character named Aaron, and he was the one who Gray was working on this, Firebird for, this old school car, and he needed his wife to give him a ride home. And that's where it starts to go wrong, because this car that's driving itself somehow gets hacked and is forced into this accident, and that propels them into the series of unfortunate events that which take place after this.
Yeah, no, it starts off very quickly. It's really nice to see a modern movie. I mean, this was 2018, I think you said. It's very tight. It doesn't waste a lot. You know, I like movies that don't waste a lot. I like a movie that just does what it needs to do and moves on. It's not really there to like pound anything into you. It's just telling its story. And I feel like that's what this one was doing. It wasn't trying to like feed you anything. It definitely had a motif to it, but it wasn't really there was no moral to it necessarily. It's just, hey, here's a concept and here's a fucked up story to go with it.
Absolutely. That whole car crash thing when they were taking over the computer of this car, which is doing all the driving and everything. It's without, as you said, without hitting you over the head with it. It's just a interesting look into an Orwellian future where we let our technology run us and the sorts of consequences that could come because of that. If you're driving your old school car, I mean, you're driving it. There's no hacking it. There's no, having it drive you wherever somebody wants you to be, because that's not how that works. So giving our lives up to all this technology, I think this movie is trying to say something about that without really being too in your face with it. They're not smelling their own farts over here with this movie. Like, oh, our ideas are so good. Oh, it's so great. No, it's none of that. They're just telling a story. It's an interesting and fun. This is a guy movie. We're not going to say it's not. It's for those. And when I say guy movie, generally action, bloody, gore, things like that. Doesn't mean it's just for guys, but it's
the kind
that
of movie
style
that
of movie.
My girlfriend out of the room, so I get what you mean.
Yeah. Now there's going to be plenty of women who are totally dead. My girlfriend, she watched it with me, and I mean, she enjoyed it. She came in a little bit after I'd already started it. Watched it mostly with me again tonight when I watched it again just to make sure I was ready for this. So not 100%, but it wouldn't be something that I'd say she would pick herself either.
No, I think people have different ideas of what entertainment really is and what they're willing to put themselves through. Because this was, what did I text you right after I was done? Actually, I didn't tell you I was done, but I assume you knew.
No, I knew you were done, and you were like, "Fuck, man."
Precisely.
That's what the text was.
Yep.
2 words. And I showed it to my girlfriend later after I got done watching. I'm like, this was his response after he finished it, which that's perfect. That's the exact response that I kind of wanted from you, because I really like the way this movie ended, and we'll get there. But as we said, we get propelled into the narrative of the story because accident with this hyper fancy car. These people come that they immediately say we're here to help. They're not here to help. They're here to they kill his wife and then they shoot him in the back.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you noticed until they said something later on, but I noticed immediately when they did it that wasn't just a regular gun. There was something weird about that.
Yeah, my girlfriend thought it was some kind of electricity based thing to like damage his nerve. She was like, that is something they did on purpose. They weren't trying to kill him. They were doing that.
And you come to find out later on that his wife wasn't at all the target, that he was the target.
Right.
Also, one of the things you find out early on that we've glossed over was the fact that his wife worked for one major software computer company, whereas this young man, Aaron, who he did the car work for, he works for an entirely different company, who is what his wife's company is aspiring to be.
Yeah.
So that was the company of it was Cobalt was hers,
and Vessel was his.
Vessel was the other one.
Yeah. I didn't really make any connection between the two companies at first. I mean, they used, I think, her working for Cobalt as partially like an intrigue thing to lead you down one path. but also, I don't know, it was a good way of introducing you to Aaron, to showing you that he is very socially awkward, and there's just something a little odd about him, because she's saying like, oh, well, I work for this company, you know, we're not quite like you, but we really would like to be someday. And he's like, yeah, you're not going to be, and here's why. And
yeah, he was a weird dude.
Yeah, and he shows her this chip called STEM that is... Now, this I didn't like. I was going to say earlier that I don't think I have any real gripes with this movie, but this was a gripe. That the magical MacGuffin thing that he has, that he shows them before the accident, can do anything. It can connect to anything, talk to anything, perform any action. It can think for itself. It can do anything. It makes the world a totally different place.
Yep.
Like, why? I don't know. Why can't it just be something a little bit more normal? You know, here's a car that gets 100 miles per gallon. What are the implications of that? You know, demand for fuel is way down. Gas stations get thinned out. You know, there's a lot of impact to just smaller changes without having to go, well, this one thing that I make that I have here in my hand in my house changes the world. Like, everything is literally obsolete now because of this one thing. I don't know. But still, I get why they did it the way they did it.
Well, you know why that was like that, right? They didn't specifically come out and say it, but it's because that STEM chip is made of vibranium.
Ah.
And so it can do literally anything. So we've already been introduced to that through other movies. It's fine. We'll just have to accept it. So vibranium, you can do anything.
It is known.
It is known.
Yeah. So
it's an understandable gripe. I do get that. I have a few myself that we will get to over the course, but yeah, I figure that's an acceptable gripe.
Yeah. So the next step in the movie is he wakes up in the hospital. The police show up. Like, the police are there really fast, but the criminals are there faster. The ones that get them, they take her stuff, you know, shoot her. It's a very creepy scene. Like, it's really personal for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
I was super, super uncomfortable with that. It's like, just shoot her and get it over with. I don't want to see whatever it is you're probably going to be doing here in a minute. But that happens. They shoot her. They paralyze him. He wakes up in the hospital. His wife is dead. And then it goes through this, not exactly a montage, but, you know, it's smaller scenes where they're showing him going home, you know, trying to learn to operate on his own. He's got this futuristic technology. There's even his point at which he tries to kill himself using this stuff. He goes up to the thing and says, administer my PM medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, again, you know, there was an error. Do it again. Do it again. He's telling it over and over. And the thing goes, nope. He pulls out Howl 9000 and goes, nope, I can't do this. That's too much. I'm going to call the hospital now.
That's right. It's the first law of robotics. Can't kill a human. I really liked after he got paralyzed that, and it was just small. It was a little bit. It didn't take much to convey this, but his mom being there, helping him out, acting like a mother would, even if her adult grown son had become this quadriplegic and he couldn't do anything anymore. And a lot of there was him breaking down, and he did a good job showing both the physical and the emotional pain of what would happen to somebody if you were put in that position. Because not only are you having to deal with this, at the same time you have to deal with the fact that your partner for life, that your wife, who you loved and cared for, was killed in front of your eyes. So not even like a car crash and she didn't make it and you did make it, but actually literally got murdered in front of your eyes. So it was a lot to deal with, and I thought he did a very good job of conveying that.
This Logan Marshall Green, he's not just a great value Tom Hardy. I mean, I'd like to see him in other stuff because his performance all the way through it, like, it's very, very convincing.
It was every different way in which, like you already talked about, the three different styles: the normal guy, the quadriplegic, and then acting as if this computer is helping control your actions. They were three distinct different ways of doing it, and that physicality as part of the acting was really well done by him.
Well, it looks like he's been in a bunch of stuff, actually. I'm looking at his IMDb page now. He's been in Law and Order. Actually, 2 different Law and Order series. He's been on 24, The OC, Blue Blood. He was in Prometheus. He's apparently all over the place. I've just never noticed him. He was even in Spider-Man Homecoming as Jackson Bryce. Not sure who that is.
Well, good. Let's hope he keeps working, because this really showed off some of the acting chops that I think he has. And I don't know if this movie got as much recognition as it should have. It was a very unique idea.
Yeah.
Apparently it was compared, a lot of comparisons to Venom that came out close to the same time.
Mm-hmm. And never having seen
is...
Venom, I actually was thinking about that too. Because, getting further into the story, once he gets this implant, Aaron visits him in the hospital. He gets this implant that the stem chip is put in his neck, and it's meant to bridge the gap between his brain and the rest of his body. So his brain is supposed to be controlling this chip, but he finds out as things go on that the chip is actually thinking for itself. It starts talking to him while he's sitting at home. He's supposed to keep the fact that he has this a secret because it hasn't been approved medically. But he's trying to do some research on what happened. He's watching some of the drone footage from the police and just looking for any clue as to what's going on, because 3 months elapse from the time that he gets out of the hospital and when he's first put in. And according to the police, they haven't made any progress during that period.
There's video recorded evidence of the entire crime which was perpetrated against him, because there's these little drones that fly around everywhere, and apparently we have chips or something in us, some bio ID and fillings that we have. He mentions at one point that you just know who everybody is. But one of the realistic things that I thought about this was, just like criminals nowadays, well, they're just gonna subvert the law somehow. So if you have these things to track you, they're going to find ways to get around that.
Yeah, I think that was supposed to be one of the messages of it, was just because you have all this technology doesn't mean it's going to keep you safe. Just because your car can drive itself and make these decisions doesn't mean it's perfect. Just because the police are able to see everything doesn't mean they're able to protect you. I think it's even a quote that Chief Wiggum has, right? The law is powerless to protect you, but not to punish you, or something like that.
Ha! That sounds like exactly something he might say. So this movie really, as soon as this stem is introduced as its own separate character who is living inside of Gray, it really kind of picks up, gets going. This chip helps him determine one of the bad guys who was at the scene, and so he goes to this guy's house.
Yeah, through some bullshit CSI like zoom and enhance sort of stuff, where the chip is telling him like, oh, hey, I noticed something on here. Look at this. He's got a mark on his wrist, and look at this guy. He's not shooting a gun. There's a gun implanted in his arm. And it's weird as to how the chip would think that. Because I would not know that the chip would have any kind of world experience. Does that make sense? Like, if it's coming in and its only job is to help him operate his body, how does it know what an implanted gun looks like? How does it know what this tattoo is supposed to look like? And then it does the zoom and enhance, and he uses Gray's body to draw in almost the same way as the robots in iRobot, where it's like a dot matrix printer just scans across. It's very cool. It was. It's really cool. That actually feels like that would be real. If there was a machine controlling a human body, that's, it makes sense maybe that's how it would move.
Absolutely. Like some of the movements that he has, like when he goes to this person's house to kind of figure stuff out, like he sees this person leave and he's going to go inside the house while they're not there to try and find some evidence. That's one of the first times you notice as he is walking around and making these movements that he doesn't look just like a normal man walking around. There's slight differences, very slight rigidness to every action that he's doing that seems somewhat automated and robotic, and it was really well done by him.
Yeah, very Commander Data-like.
Mm-hmm. So he gets into this house, and this this other character Stem is giving him suggestions about, doing this and finding this and looking here. And then your first real action scene takes place when this guy must have just gone to the grocery store real quick, gone to the quick shop, came right back, just got himself a pack of cigarettes and a 40 and wanted to come home and chill.
Yep.
And there's this guy in his house, and Stem's telling him, just hide behind the bookshelf, whatever. All right, now's your time, go. And it's just this chip telling him to go, and he's like, what do you mean? And this guy just starts kicking the shit out of him because he has no idea what he's doing.
Yeah. And then Stem is telling him, like, I need your permission to help you here. And he's like, okay, permission
He does.
granted.
He has to
and then he shoots
give
up.
permission.
Yeah, he shoots up like the Undertaker and just basically turns into Neo.
Yeah, it's the fight scenes in this, because of how it's done with this chip controlling his actions, they're very unique. I liked them quite a bit. I thought the choreography was done really well. And it's a really fun action scene. And he just proceeds
to take this
kick
guy
the
apart.
crap out of this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, just take this guy completely apart. And this human being has no chance.
And again, great performance, because while this is happening, it's one actor. It's not really two characters. He is fighting and doing this choreographed stuff, and he's like, oh my God, what's going on? What are you doing? Please don't get up. Please don't keep coming at me. Like, don't, the scene that we were laughing at is where they're in the kitchen. The guy like goes to hit him with a glass, or like try to smash a glass on him, and he like turns it around and smashes on him, and then he's just like rapid fire, like smashing porcelain on this person. And he's like, please stop.
And he tells him, right, just stay down, man. Just don't stop coming after me. And that's great, telling this guy whose house he broke into. Mm-hmm. Just stay down, man. I don't want to hurt you. And then he grabs a knife, and that just becomes even worse for him. Like, he freaks out while he's both talking to this guy whose house he broke into, this criminal, and to Stem. So he's having like a three-way conversation, but this guy's only privy to 50% of it. It's a really unique balance that they strike in this movie upon doing it this way. But the scene that made your girlfriend get up and leave, it's a gruesome, it's basically a fatality from Mortal Kombat that he perpetrates on this guy. And it was fantastic. Yeah. It was really, really good. I liked how it made me understand, so this movie's going to be like that, huh? All right.
Yeah. So then it leads into this cat and mouse sort of thing between the detective who's looking into it all and him. Mm-hmm. They found this guy who was suspected of some of this stuff dead. They look at their surveillance footage and they see his wheelchair rolling down the street. And they're trying to figure out, well, what's that about? Why is he down there? And she even tries to add him to the suspect list. And there's a scene where you see the computer pull up this thing and say, incompatible, diagnosed quadriplegic, or something like that. She's not able to add him to a suspect list.
Yeah, there's a scene where she goes and confronts him about this. And I really liked her in this. I thought she did a good job of seeing past just what should have been. Like, there's no way that this quadriplegic can be involved in any of this. But knowing, because of the things that she was watching and her gut as a cop telling her, there's something else, there's something more to this. The scene where she's confronting him about it, Stem is trying to tell Gray what to do and how to respond to, get her to get out of there.
Yeah, like, look out, she's looking at your boots. She must have found a footprint there.
Mm-hmm. At one point he says, well, if you don't believe me, just stab me in the leg. And her reaction to that, because that was a very odd thing, I thought, to say, her reaction was a very, like, a scrunched up face, like, wait, why is he saying that? Like, it didn't make sense in her head. Mm-hmm. And it just, continued the wheels turning. And she ended up being a very interesting part of this whole dynamic.
So that's basically how the movie continues then, is he goes to different locations, and Stem is even saying, like, this guy's going to try to shut me down, which means you're going to stop working. Like, your body's going to quit on you. So you can go to this bar where you think you're going to get another lead, but, this could go really wrong for us. So that starts the scene where he rolls into this bar. Again, I mean, I hadn't seen Venom. I've seen the previews. I was advised to stay away from that movie. But what I saw, the way Tom Hardy acted in it, this seemed very similar. He seems very out of it. He seems, I don't know, he's talking to himself. He's super straightforward. He walks, I guess he rolls. He rolls into the middle of this crowd. And he's like, yeah, somebody here knows something about, who paralyzed me and killed my wife. So if you could just stand up, that'd be great.
Yeah, that was I enjoyed kind of like the first fight scene. It ends up, it's an information gathering thing, but ends up being a nice quick action sequence that's fun. I really enjoyed the conversation that he had with Stem when he first goes to the bar. Like, he has the bartender pour him some whiskey, has somebody at the bar like hey buddy, you do me a solid, holds the glass for him while he drinks it out of a straw. And Stem's like, well, you shouldn't be doing that. It's gonna impair your ability to do things. He's like, yeah, that's why they can charge money for it. I enjoyed the back and forth between them at certain times. But yeah, he does some stuff in this bar, has another confrontation, gets another lead. But as that's happening, he finds out through Stem that Aaron is trying to shut him down. So now Stem has already worked all this out. He's like, what do you want me to do? He's like, I've already worked it out. You need to go here. You need to tell this particular person this thing I'm going to tell you. And has him write down this whole series of letters and numbers, like a paragraph.
Yeah, instructions to the hacker
arm.
On his forearm, right, with a Sharpie.
Right. A whole paragraph of just crap on his forearm in order to shut down the restrictions on this chip. So that was interesting. It led to this person that you'd mentioned before, Fisk, who is the one in charge of that hit squad that took out, that did what it did to him and killed his wife. And it continues this cat and mouse chase, where one is looking after the other. But one of the things that happened during this whole hacker scene was people from Vessel were coming to, I guess, take control of Gray. Like they'd been sent by Aaron. And then you see that there's a conflict between Fisk, who apparently got his technology from Cobalt, and Vessel. And they start to bring that dynamic into this movie. But therein lies one of my gripes, because nothing ever really came about in that storyline. Like they're leading it to these two companies fighting and butting heads with one another. Like that's going to lead up to something throughout the course of this story, but that never really pans out. They don't ever.
It's just a red herring. It's something that they put in there to make you think that's where it's going. The implants that the guys who hit them have are from Cobalt, whereas his thing's from Vessel. So it's supposed to lead you to believe that there's somebody related to his wife and her work that is out to get them. And you find out from Fisk, there's a scene where they're, it's like you said, it's very much like a revenge movie. He's going through them. He takes out the first couple, even in the scene where he's at that bar, he's still trying to do the right thing, but he's working with Stem. They've got a good kind of dynamic going on. Where he's just trying to get the guy. Stem's like, hey, I'm going to stop you from feeling pain for a little bit here, so this won't be so bad for you. And he allows them to kind of like stick them with these knives and like, all right, so you really are paralyzed. Like, where do you actually feel? And he gets the guy to eventually admit that, yeah, he was one of the ones that was there when his wife was killed. And he goes, okay, Stem, take over. And it goes into like a Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon meets The Matrix sort of thing again.
Yeah, and he just wipes the floor with like 3 or 4 guys in this bathroom.
Yeah, and Stem even tortures one of them for information without him looking, because he's like, I can't do this. And Stem's like, I can do it for you. No problem. And you hear like screaming and these slicing noises, and he's like, all right, the guy's going to answer any questions you want now.
I did enjoy that particular scene where, he gets done kicking the crap out of him, and he like hops over the main guy who he wants to talk to, who's laying on the floor, and he's like straddling him, and he puts his fingers together like Mr. Burns, and like, you know, because he was very cocky during the whole thing. Like, he really is overconfident letting this computer take over for him. But when it came time for him holding the knife to try and use it to torture somebody and make him talk, that he couldn't do it. He's like, I don't have the stomach for that. I can't slice up another human being to make them tell me information.
Yeah.
So that was interesting, I thought.
I like that they were developing, at least for a while, this symbiotic relationship between the two. That there were certain things that Gray could do and certain things that Stem could do. And when they get into the final confrontation, when he tracks down Fisk and goes after him, well, first off, before he goes after Fisk, the detective has figured out what's going on. She bugged the place with some sort of analog device that Stem wasn't able to detect. It leads to a pretty neat car chase, actually, where, again, it's one of these things where each had their own strength. Stem can't do anything to influence the cars because neither of them that are involved are driving a car that's computerized. He refers to them as being electronic, but they're mechanical cars. There's no way he can just shut them down. But what he does is he takes control of another Westworld style car and uses it to ram the police car, you know. And again, you know, cool dynamic. There's the human doing something, there's the robot doing something, or the you know, the mechanical side doing something. And then in that fight, it's revealed, and it's a good fight. It's another really good fight. Each of the fights,
the fight between him and Fisk.
Yeah. They're all the fights in this movie are very unique. All the confrontations are unique. And you find out that Fisk was a soldier. He was experimented on by Cobalt, presumably. He's got all these implants in him. He can do all these different things. He has a gun implanted in his arm. He has like nanobots that he can put out through his breath or something like that. And he considers himself part of a new species, you know, upgraded, the people who are upgraded. And or maybe a new race is the better way to put it, but you know, he's saying, I don't really want to hurt you because you're one of us now. Like, you're part of the thing that I am and what I believe in now. And it's another thing where there's this guy, Fisk, as good as Gray and Stem are together, this guy's better. Stem saying, like, I can't hit him. I don't know what's going on. He's anticipating my every move. And right as they're about to be killed, Stem is telling him, like, Gray, you need to do something. I can't figure this out. And Gray messes with him emotionally. And the guy's, you know, about to shoot him, but he gets under his skin, gets him to kind of lose his composure, and then he manages to take him down.
He did. It was, again, a nice symbiotic relationship there where they both have, you know, stuff they can and can't do, and they have to rely on one another. One of the things that happens at this hacker scene, two things. One, after the hacker does what Stem is telling Gray to have the hacker do, Gray doesn't find this out immediately, but ends up learning that he no longer needs your permission. He can now just control everything, and you are kind of
just along for the ride. Yeah,
absolutely. But something else that happened in that hacker scene was the hacker said, alluded to something greater. They said, we can't let them win. And then, you know, Gray's, who's them? What are you talking about? Like, I thought there was going to be, I don't know if that was just another red herring they threw in, but I thought because it's an outside character saying something about it, that it was actually going to pan out into something.
Well, see, I think that line didn't, maybe if anything, it just didn't have anything to do with what was going on with the characters we were following. You know, this hacker, the people that were there obviously had other things going on, and they may have assumed that was related to something else they were doing, which helps make it feel more real. Like the people are actually doing something and the world's lived in because they have their own concerns. You know, she does, or the hacker actually expressly says, do not try to guess my name. Do not try to guess my gender. So this individual just, you know, okay, I did what I need to do. Now there are people here. I'm out, you know, bye. Good luck.
I like that. I hadn't thought about it that way. That's unique take on that. So that's that's why it's fun to do this and talk about it, because you're going to have two different takes on it and see how we feel about it.
Yeah, totally. And the
So-
movie ultimately culminates in finding out that it was actually Aaron who ordered these guys to specifically paralyze Gray. And so he goes after Gray. That becomes his next target. And there are arguments during this whole thing between Stem and Gray where he's saying, no, I can't do this. I don't want to kill people anymore. And he's saying, well, if we don't kill them, they'll kill us, and I can't allow us to die. And also your permission is no longer really a thing that I need here.
Yeah, so there's a scene later on towards the closing parts of this movie where his Gray's mom sees him walk into his house, and she's like, "What?" She's just, obviously her quadriplegic son comes walking in the door.
Yeah, covered in blood and dirt and stuff.
Little off-putting, and then he's just like, "Oh, hi, Mom." So they have a nice little scene, but it's kind of an emotional thing where she's telling him to not go, and he's like, "I can't. I have to go," but he can't really explain to her why.
Yeah.
He can't just tell her, "Oh, this chip is 100% taken over." I don't know why he can't. I guess he could have.
Yeah, he does. He leaves, and he even has this like herky jerky kind of motion. Like, I guess he's in control of his head for the most part still, because the chip controls everything from the neck down. But yeah, he has this motion where it's like the body's going, and the head's like, "Well, I'm not on board with this."
So yeah, the last time you see the cop before the very final scene of the movie is after she gets her car wrecked.
Mm-hmm.
So she gets car wrecked. He has a confrontation with Fisk. He goes after Aaron. Neat scene. And when he walks back down into Aaron's house, there's like two security guards, and he walks in, but he's looking at the ground as the gun just aims up, like from the hip, bam, bam, and just takes those two guys out immediately. Like they had no chance.
Yeah, that was interesting because with Fisk, he had all these enhancements. He could see through walls using like predator vision, thermal vision or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so he saw the guards coming in the elevator. But I was kind of wondering how they're going to handle that. He's just going to walk through. A human's going to hesitate, but Stem won't.
Right.
The humans are like,
and that's exactly what happened.
Like, he was there for a second before he shot both of them.
Yeah, it's as I said, all the action in this, all super well done. Really enjoyed all of it. But there's a confrontation finally at the end with Aaron, and that's where it really screws with your head, because you come to find out that everything that's happened, everything that's gone on, was the plan of this chip in his head.
Yep.
It was all perpetrated by basically him.
Yeah,
it's not him. It's this chip controlling him.
Yeah, it was the chip's own plan because it wanted a body. It was the next part of its own progression that it wanted a human body to inhabit in the real world. And it chose Gray specifically because he had come into contact with it directly and had no modifications.
Yeah, he was the perfect subject for this thing to have and to use for its own purposes. To become it had become self-aware, and when technology becomes self-aware, that's when there's problems, and it has happened in lots of different movies. It's been handled in different ways, and this was a fun way to go about it. My last gripe for this entire movie is the fact that he's confronting Aaron, and then all of a sudden the cop is there.
Yeah
I don't know how I didn't really question it when I watched it the first time, but the second time I'm like, how is she there?
She went into the house and his mother was there, and she said, "Look, you need to tell me what's going on." And she knew where the chip came from. So odds are that's just where the cop went, because that's the only lead she had.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I kind of forgot that that she went back to talk to her mom. And so that's the only lead that the cop had to follow. That actually makes me feel a little bit better. But yeah, at the end of it, my favorite part about this, and this is the biggest spoiler, so if you've listened up to this point, you probably don't care or have already seen it. But the fact that the bad guy wins. Like there's an interaction where he tries to kill this cop, and Stem tries to kill the cop, and he tries to fight. He tries to fight back and take control of his own body and not let that happen. And so there's that back and forth of, I'm going to make you do it. And, oh, no, you're not. And they've had that in other movies, TV shows, things where some outside influence is trying to control you mentally and you're using your will to fight back against it.
Yeah.
And apparently, the way it works is he snaps.
Yeah, and he wakes up in basically a dream world where he's in the hospital. He's not paralyzed. They were in an accident. He's been out for a couple days. His wife is there. He's happy.
Yeah, and he accepts it. I kept expecting him in that dream state to reject it and to take over and maybe just live the rest of his life as a quadriplegic without this chip working or something. But no. He stays there. Stem kills Aaron. Stem kills the cop. After he kills the cop, he takes the knife out of his hand that Gray had stabbed into there when he was trying to be the one in control. And he kind of licks the blood off of his finger.
Yep, harkening back to the very beginning of the movie where he's working on. I called it a Trans Am. You're right. It was a Firebird, he said. But yeah, where he licks the blood off his finger. And oh my God, the way his mannerisms change even more. So I guess there's a fourth state. There's normal quadriplegic with the chip, and then with the chip and without Gray being there at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so bizarre looking. It is so perfect for what a biological robot, what you would think it would move like. It is so goddamn creepy.
It was. And that's what it needed to be to pull it off. And it did. It absolutely pulled it off. He did a fantastic job acting all those parts out. And I can't recommend this movie enough. It was fun. It was a unique idea. I really enjoyed all of it. A couple of small gripes that we had here and there, but the special effects, what there were good. A lot of the fight scenes were really unique. The way they had the camera centered on his body, things like that. It was very interesting way, but it wasn't shaky camera. It wasn't things going on that I couldn't tell what was happening because of too many people or this or that. It was really well done. So I'm glad we got a chance to sit down and talk about it. I hope all of you listening have enjoyed us chatting about it, because, man, I enjoyed the hell out of watching this movie. It was really, really good.
Yeah, I'm really glad you recommended it. The only other thing that I'd bring up, do you want to hear a pro-human comment?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
So at the end of the movie, one of the things that Stem says when he's fully taken over is that, that he wanted Gray because he was not enhanced. He had no kind of implants or any sort of enhancements, or however he referred to it. He says there were others out there like Fisk who were upgraded. They're upgraded humans or enhanced humans, but they're still humans. And he wanted to be something more. But without Gray's help, Fisk, who was one of these upgraded humans, was superior. Just pointing it out. If it was just Stem versus Fisk, Fisk won. The only reason Stem survived was because Gray stepped in. Well, that's all I've got. I really enjoyed this movie. It's definitely a watch, 100%. It, like you said, it's kind of a small movie. I think I looked it up. It made like maybe $11 million, something like. Actually, let me look at it.
Yeah, it was originally going to be titled Stem, but they changed the title probably for the better. It still didn't, do super well. I don't think it's as super well known as it should be, but kind of like other movies that we know and that we'll probably get to in time, underrated and well done, well acted. Absolutely recommend this for anybody who wants a good, fun, kind of thriller action movie. Super fun.
Definitely underrated. Okay, so I looked it up on Wikipedia. According to Wikipedia, $3 million budget, $17 million box office. So that's not a lot. This probably wasn't it, aired very many places. It shows it was released at South by Southwest. So I guess it's a smaller independent movie. But very good. That's exactly why we wanted to do this podcast, to bring movies like this to people who wouldn't have heard of them otherwise, maybe.
We hope you enjoyed listening to us once again. Thank you, everyone. Tune in again next week. Next time we put one of these out, listen to another one. Until then, I'm Joe.
And I'm Ryan. And if you have any comments, any suggestions, if you have any hidden gems you want us to see, feel free to get in touch with us at moviehowl@gmail.com or on Twitter @moviehowl.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed.
We love you.